The BBC is very excited that the election coverage will be led by Clive Myrie. Clive Myrie is a prominent British journalist and news reader for the BBC. He also presents the thing where people are mastermind, and has personal ties with the Windrush generation through his family. His brother, for example, Peter Myrie, died before he could revisit Jamaica, highlighting that personal connection. And he talks today in the BBC about the impact of Windrush and of the scandal on his generation, many of whom face severe injustices despite their long-standing connections and contributions to the UK. And the story isn't over. The Windrush generation are still awaiting proper compensation. The scandal erupted in 2010, exposing the wrongful detention, the denial of legal rights, the threats of deportation, actual deportations of Commonwealth citizens who've been residing in the UK legally for decades. And the term Windrush generation refers to the immigrants from Caribbean countries who arrived in the UK between 1948 and 1971, named after the Empire Windrush ship that brought one of the first large groups of Caribbean migrants to the UK in 1948. And, be in no doubt, I regard migration as a boon, as a positive. The key feature of the scandal is Theresa May's hostile environment, this policy of aggression. And it was introduced by Theresa May during her time as Home Secretary from 2010 to 2016. And the policy aimed to make life difficult for those in the UK illegally, but also it seriously affected legal residents, including the Windrush generation. And this division between legal and illegal, which is really a bureaucratic distinction. Many Windrush immigrants were not given any documents when they arrived, and the Home Office kept records on paper, but then threw them away in a fit of laziness and pique during Theresa May's tenure. And over the years, changes in immigration law meant that these individuals were required to prove their right to reside in the UK, despite having lived here, despite having worked here, despite having contributed so much to the country over the decades. And the Home Office's aggressive approach, combined with poor record keeping, stupidity, lack of due diligence, led to numerous wrongful detentions and deportations, and many Windrush generation members have been denied health care, have lost their jobs, have faced significant stress and hardship simply because of the lazy Home Office manipulation, because of its actions, because of its stupidity, because of its leadership. And the leadership, it comes down to one person, Theresa May, who became Prime Minister, who ducked the bullet when the scandal came out because she was Prime Minister. And she passed the buck to Amber Rudd, who succeeded May as Home Secretary and faced the intense scrutiny and pressure as the scandal came to light. She took responsibility for the Home Office actions, admitted that the department had set targets for deportations, which contradicted her earlier statements, and she resigned in April 2018. I found Amber Rudd to be a very pleasant and genial individual, but Theresa May, I think, remains a person who should have apologised, who should have resigned, who should have taken the fall for such an appalling and egregious abuse of power. The consequences of this, the public outcry, the apologies, the meaningless apologies, because they're not followed through with money, with compensation. They're followed through with time and hand-wringing. The compensation scheme itself set up to provide support, to give restitution to those affected by the scandal, but in fact the implementation of the scheme has been too slow, too inadequate, too useless, too lazy, too much the product of the Home Office. If you ever wanted to do anything that involves the Home Office, just sigh and weep, because nothing will happen properly. You can't even get your passport renewed, and that's something that's been offloaded to another department. It's been given to a private firm. It took me, I think, something like 4 months to get a passport renewed. The scandal has promoted calls for reviews about the hostile environment, about the immigration enforcement practices, but with Suella Braverman in place, with James Cleverly in place, with Priti Patel in place, none of that is going to change. There are assurances that a recurrence won't happen, but deeper systemic reforms are needed to genuinely change the climate, and the impact on individuals has been extreme. Now, Clive Myrie has spoken publicly today about the impact of the Windrush scandal on his family and his community, and his brother Peter's inability to revisit Jamaica before his death underscores the personal toll of the Home Office's aggressive and careless enforcement of absurd policies. And Myrie, who is now the figurehead of the election broadcast for the BBC, personally highlights, simply by being there, a poignant human dimension to the broader narrative of the scandal and the personal and family costs of government failure and policy stupidity, policy missteps, policy failure. It's a stark reminder of the potential human cost of stringent and foolish immigration policies implemented without proper, adequate, thoughtful safeguards and oversight. And the role of senior politicians like Theresa May, Amber Rudd, and then the crowd of fools that followed them, and the failures in that particular ministry, in the Home Office, remain critical points for reflection, for reform, for reassessment, as we address the injustices faced by the Windrush generation, faced by the Post Office, faced by the NHS whistleblowers. And oh, by the way, I should say today, Bayram Mubarak, Eid Mubarak, and Happy Sunday. Just to change the tone, because I don't want to come across as some sort of ranting, moaning Minnie. But I find the Home Office a detestable organisation, and the people who have been leading it in the last 15 years, it is the reason. It is the reason that I haven't taken a stronger practical role in politics, because I would never work under Theresa May. And I had a meeting with Theresa May, which followed a really frustrating meeting with Andrea Leadsom. And they both struck me as individuals who did not want to listen, who did not want to take information from constituents, and who simply wanted to pontificate, and who were very smug about their position, their own position, their own party's achievement, and their own role in that. And they should now look to they should look to that and sigh. Ozymandias is a poem that comes to mind. Look upon your works, and be regretful, because the failure of the Windrush lies in the hands of these individuals and the ministry that they have single-handedly, one after the other, Actually, that's not single-handedly. That's a collection of hands. Which do you know? There's this wonderful character in early Greek mythology called the Hecatoncheires, the character with 100 hands. But no, it's Theresa May. It's Amber Rudd. That's 4 hands. Priti Patel, 6 hands. Suella Braverman, 8 hands, and James Cleverly, 10 hands. So it's a 10-handed hand job, and it's a misery, and they should all be hanging their heads in shame. And I'm so pleased that Clive Myrie is there as the figurehead, because even if he doesn't ask these people the question, why were you so stupid, he is there as an icon to remind them of what they have done, the human cost of their stupidity.